African and European Union leaders have gathered in the Ivory Coast to promote jobs and stability for Africa's exploding population. The fifth AU-EU summit in Abidjan comes at a time that the EU increasingly sees its fate linked to Africa's, following the twin shocks of unprecedented migration and terrorism. China, India, Japan, the Gulf Arab states and others are also competing for influence on a continent where the EU remains as a whole the biggest economic and political player. President Zuma is among those in the Ivory Coast for the summit, and for a bit more on the summit we cross to our presidential correspondent Mzwandile Mbeje in Abidjan. Mzwai, good afternoon, good to talk to you. So as usual, I suppose pressing African issues are expected to dominate the agenda of these talks. Take us through it.
Natasha, I didn't hear you very clearly because I think there's something that is interfering with the sound. So you keep breaking as you are speaking to me, but I assume you're talking about the issue relating to investment between the European Union and the African Union. So what I can say is that this meeting is about to officially kick off in the next hour or so. Right now is the bilaterals between various presidents and heads of government. As I'm speaking to you, President Zuma is meeting with the head of the European Council, Juncker. So there's a number of issues, Natasha, that are being discussed in this summit. You'd remember that one of the things they want to do is to redefine the relationship between the European Union and the African Union. For a long time, it was known as perhaps Africa-EU Summit, but now they want to call it AU-EU Summit. What that means is that now Morocco is on board, so basically the entirety of the African countries are now represented. So they want to redefine this relationship to move out for it to move away from the donor-based relationship, but it must be one of trade and investments. And the European countries can do a lot in terms of helping African countries to develop. And for South Africa's part, you'd know that South Africa has always, other than the Africa-EU Summit, South Africa has always had a relationship with the EU. So this year it will mark the 10 years since this relationship was established. So what they want to do, they want to give the new impetus onto this relationship. They haven't met since 2013. They want to make sure that perhaps they start meeting again, because the relationship between the EU and South Africa is the relationship, Natasha, of strategic importance. And of course, there are a number of issues that will be discussed here. The issue of youth, Africa being the youthful continent, so there's a lot that they can do in terms of tapping into that youthfulness, in terms of creating jobs, but you will only be able to do that when you are able to partner with countries like the European countries, which have the expertise, which have the skills. And of course, the issue of the peace and security. As much as Africa does welcome the fact that European countries do come and help where the issues of peace and security arise, but they would want those issues to be really driven and led by the African countries, because most of the time you would find that European countries will come and assist, but really not understanding the situation on the ground. So they would rather prefer solutions that are driven by the Africans themselves. The issue of migration, so it will be dealt with extensively as well. There's an issue about people migrating from Africa to Europe or migrating within Africa. So those are the issues, Natasha, that this summit will deal with, among others.
Madam Zuma, thank you so much. We'll leave it there for now. Mzwandile Mbeje, presidential correspondent, coming to us live from Abidjan.